Okay, so let's get right into it. Neuralink. You hear that name, and your mind probably jumps straight to science fiction, right? Telepathy, merging with AI, downloading memories, the whole shebang. But behind all of that incredible hype, there's some very real, very serious science going on. So what we're going to do here is slice right through it all, separating the wild marketing promises from what's actually happening for patients today.
And this quote? This is basically the mission statement. This single, grand, futuristic vision from Elon Musk is what has completely defined Neuralink for the public. It's the promise of merging our own consciousness with machines. I mean, it's the kind of idea that's both totally thrilling and, let's be honest, a little bit terrifying.
Okay, but hang on a second. That's the long-term dream. The really crucial question, the one we need to answer, is what can this technology actually do for people today, in the real world? And that, right there, is where the story gets really, really interesting.
All right, first up, let's just quickly run through those huge, ambitious goals, the ones that have really captured everyone's imagination. This is the hype part of the equation.
And I mean, the claims are just out there. We're talking about merging our minds with AI, downloading our memories, curing incredibly complex conditions like depression and blindness, and even giving us vision that's somehow better than natural. Now, we've got to be super clear about this from the get-go. Right now, this is all firmly in the world of science fiction. It's not happening yet.
Okay, so now let's shift gears completely. Let's move away from the what if and get right into the what is. What's it actually like for the very first person to receive a Neuralink implant? This is where the science fiction stops and the science fact begins.
So this is Noland Arbaugh. He's 30 years old, and a tragic diving accident left him paralyzed from the shoulders down. In January 2024, he became the very first person to test this device. And he's the guy who brings this whole conversation right back down to earth.
So what can Noland do now that he couldn't do before? Well, a ton. He can play chess, he can play complex video games like Civilization 6, he can browse the internet, watch videos, all just by thinking about it. Think about that. He's using this thing for about 10 hours every day, getting back a level of independence that was just gone.
Okay, but check this out. It's not just that he can do it, it's how well he can do it. Noland actually set a world record for controlling a cursor with what's called a brain-computer interface, or BCI. He hit a speed of 8 bits per second. So what on earth does that actually mean in the real world?
Well, this chart puts it all into perspective. At 8 bits per second, Noland's mind-controlled cursor is getting incredibly close to the speed of an able-bodied person using a physical mouse. That's around 10 bits per second. I mean, that's not just an improvement, that is a massive engineering lead.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, not by a long shot. The trial hit a pretty big snag. Soon after the surgery, about 85% of the tiny threads in the implant actually pulled out of his brain tissue. Now, they were able to fix the performance with software updates, but the company only revealed this problem after reporters started asking questions. And honestly, that raised a lot of eyebrows about how transparent they're really being.
So, how does any of this even work? You know, to really get what's going on, we have to talk about what the device is actually reading. And spoiler alert, it is not reading your thoughts.
It all comes down to this one specific area of the brain, the motor cortex. Now, this isn't the part of your brain that dreams or feels love or comes up with brilliant ideas. No, think of this as the joystick of the brain. Its whole job is to send out the commands that make your body move.
So here's the magic trick, right? The tiny little threads in the implant are basically eavesdropping on the neurons that are trying to move a hand. The N1 chip then takes those messy signals, cleans them up, and beams them over Bluetooth to a computer. And then a really smart algorithm sees that pattern of, hey, I want to move right, and translates it into the cursor actually moving right on the screen.
And this quote from Dr. Edward Chang, a top neuroscientist, just nails it. Scientists aren't tapping into your complex internal thoughts. They're tapping into the much simpler signals the brain uses to control muscles. And that difference is everything. Moving a cursor with your brain is an incredible feat of engineering, but it's not mind reading. It is not telepathy.
You know, Neuralink gets pretty much all of the media attention, but it is so important to remember they are not the only game in town. Not even close. In fact, other companies have been working on this stuff for a lot longer.
Just take a look at this. You've got companies like BlackRock Neurotech who've been implanting these devices in humans since 2004.
That's 2 decades of data on how these things hold up in the long run. Then there's Synchron, which has this brilliant approach where they thread their device through a vein, so they don't even have to do open brain surgery. So you see, everyone's taking a different shot at this, and in a lot of ways, some of these competitors are way ahead of Neuralink when it comes to getting through all the regulatory hoops.
And all of this progress from all these different players, well, it opens up a huge can of worms, right? We're talking about some serious skepticism from the scientific community and some massive ethical questions that we are just starting to figure out.
And this quote from Dr. Miguel Nicolelis, wow, he does not pull any punches. This is one of the guys who literally helped create this entire field. And he's basically saying that the big flashy promises Musk is making, they just don't line up with what we actually know about how the brain works.
And here's Dr. John Krakauer from Johns Hopkins, hammering that exact same point home. The real worry here is that all this massive marketing and overselling, it just distracts from the slow, boring, but absolutely essential hard work that real science depends on.
And these aren't just a few isolated complaints. People in the field are asking, where are the peer-reviewed papers on the human trials? Why is so much of this being announced on social media instead of in scientific journals? And then there are the huge privacy questions, the issues with animal testing, and the biggest one of all, who owns the data that's coming directly from your brain? Seriously, right now, nobody has a good answer for that.
Okay, so let's try to tie all of this together. How do we square the circle between these amazing engineering feats and the much more grounded, sober scientific reality?
This chart really lays it out, doesn't it? On one hand, you have these undeniable engineering wins. A tiny, wireless implant put in by a robot, that's amazing. But on the other hand, you have the scientific reality. Moving a cursor isn't telepathy, and picking up on motor signals is not the same thing as reading thoughts. And while this is providing real help for people with paralysis, widespread commercial approval is still years away.
So what's the bottom line here? It's this. Neuralink is building a genuine, life-changing tool for people with paralysis. And we absolutely should not downplay how incredible that is. But the real future of brain-computer interfaces is being built brick by brick, through slow, careful, peer-reviewed science. It is not going to happen in a press release.
And that leaves us with one last, massive question to think about. The technology to decode the brain's signals, it's here, and it's moving at lightning speed. But the rules, the ethics, they're lagging way, way behind. So maybe the biggest challenge going forward isn't technological at all. Maybe it's us. Who gets to write the terms of service for our own minds?